Imagine you are standing on the ground, feeling the steady pull of Earth beneath your feet. Gravity is silent, invisible, and constant. It holds oceans in their basins, keeps buildings anchored to foundations, and binds the atmosphere to the planet. Now imagine that, without warning, gravity suddenly vanishes. Not weakens, not shifts, completely disappears. For 5 full seconds, every object, every person, every drop of water, and every breath of air is no longer pulled downward. The force that has shaped the universe since its beginning simply turns off, leaving Earth and everything on it suspended in chaos. In the very first fraction of a second, nothing seems different. Your brain has no immediate signal that gravity is gone. But then your feet lose pressure against the floor. Chairs, phones, tables, and loose objects begin to drift upward relative to the spinning Earth beneath them. The planet is still rotating at over 1,600 kilometers per hour at the equator. Without gravity holding you down, inertia takes over. You are no longer firmly attached to the surface. Instead, you continue moving in a straight line while the Earth curves away beneath you. People indoors would rise towards ceilings instantly. Those sitting would float from chairs. Those sleeping would lift from beds. In high-rise buildings, the effect would be terrifying. Everything not bolted down would drift upward at the same time. Water inside pipes would surge. Drinks would burst from cups into floating spheres. Ceiling fixtures could detach. Even the air itself would begin to shift, since gravity normally keeps the densest layers of the atmosphere close to Earth's surface. Outside, the situation becomes far more dramatic. The oceans, no longer bound by gravity, would begin to bulge outward. However, they would not immediately fly into space. They would continue moving with Earth's rotation, sliding in straight paths as the curved planet turns away beneath them. Coastal regions would see water lifting and drifting. Massive sheets of ocean would peel away from the surface, creating airborne walls of water suspended for those 5 surreal seconds. The atmosphere would also begin to expand outward. Gravity is what keeps air molecules from drifting into space. Without it, gases would move in straight lines, dispersing rapidly. For 5 seconds, breathable air near the surface would thin slightly as it began to spread. Birds mid-flight would lose lift instantly. Airplanes would stop generating aerodynamic support because flight depends on gravity pulling against lift forces. Pilots would experience sudden freefall inside cockpits. Vehicles on roads would detach from asphalt. Cars, buses, and trains would lift slightly as their tires lose downward force. Drivers would no longer have traction or steering control. High-speed vehicles would continue forward motion in straight lines while Earth curves away. Bridges would strain under internal stresses as structural forces shift. Suspension cables would slacken unnaturally. The entire infrastructure of civilization, designed around constant gravitational load, would experience a sudden, destabilizing release. Humans themselves would face intense disorientation. The inner ear depends on gravity to maintain balance. Without it, your sense of up and down disappears instantly. Panic would spread as billions of people feel themselves floating. Objects collide mid-air. In crowded cities, chaos multiplies as debris drifts unpredictably. Even small items like pens or kitchen utensils become hazards. The experience would resemble sudden zero gravity in space, but without preparation, harnesses, or warning. Meanwhile, Earth itself is still spinning and orbiting the sun. Gravity does more than keep us grounded. It holds the planet together. Without gravitational compression, the internal pressure that keeps Earth spherical would vanish briefly. The crust, oceans, and mantle would attempt to move outward slightly due to rotational momentum. The effect in just 5 seconds would be subtle but measurable, as tectonic stresses redistribute across the globe. Satellites orbiting Earth would also be affected. Orbital motion depends on gravity constantly pulling objects inward while they move forward. Remove gravity, and satellites would stop curving around the planet. They would travel in straight lines, tangential to their original paths. In 5 seconds, many would shift positions enough to destabilize future orbits. Some could collide with debris. Others might drift permanently off course, altering communication, navigation, and weather monitoring systems. The moon would feel it too. Earth's gravitational pull keeps the moon in orbit. If gravity vanished everywhere for 5 seconds, the moon would move in a straight line along its orbital tangent. Though 5 seconds seems short, on a cosmic scale it introduces measurable deviation. When gravity returns, the moon would snap back into a new orbit, slightly altered. That shift could subtly change tides, affecting coastal ecosystems for years. Back on Earth's surface, those 5 seconds would feel endless. People might rise several meters depending on location and Earth's rotation speed. At the equator, where rotational velocity is highest, the effect would be strongest. Near the poles, the upward drift would be smaller. Buildings would creak as internal supports redistribute stress. Glass windows could shatter from pressure changes as air redistributes within structures. Then, without warning, gravity returns. Everything that drifted upward begins falling instantly. Oceans crash back toward the surface. Air compresses downward. People, vehicles, furniture, and debris plummet simultaneously. The impact would be devastating. Even falling from a height of just a few meters can cause injury. Multiply that by billions of falling objects worldwide, and the scale of destruction becomes unimaginable. The ocean slamming back into basins would generate colossal tsunamis. Coastal cities would be struck by towering waves created not by earthquakes, but by gravity's sudden restoration. Marine life near the surface would suffer massive disruption. Ships lifted during weightlessness would smash violently against water as it reclaims its place. Ports, harbors, and shoreline infrastructure would be overwhelmed within minutes. Atmospheric compression would create powerful shock waves. As air rushes downward, pressure fluctuations could generate thunder-like booms worldwide. Storm systems would destabilize. Temperature gradients would shift abruptly. The delicate balance of global weather patterns might take weeks or months to stabilize. Aircraft that lost controlled flight during the 5 seconds would struggle to recover amid violent turbulence. Urban areas would experience cascading failures. Power lines snap as poles shift. Bridges weakened during weightlessness might collapse under renewed load. Elevators malfunction. Water systems rupture. Fires could ignite from electrical faults. Emergency services, themselves affected by the event, would struggle to respond. Hospitals would treat mass injuries from falls, blunt trauma, and structural collapse. On a planetary scale, Earth's orbit around the Sun would also shift slightly. Without gravity binding it to the Sun for 5 seconds, Earth would move along a straight tangent path. When gravity resumes, the orbit would re-establish, but not perfectly as before. Even a tiny deviation could alter seasonal timing over long periods. Climate patterns might gradually change due to this minute orbital adjustment. Yet, despite the devastation, Earth would survive. 5 seconds is brief in cosmic terms. The planet would not disintegrate or drift away entirely. Gravity's return would reassert the structure of the solar system. Over time, humanity would rebuild. Scientists would analyze the anomaly, studying its effects on physics, geology, and atmospheric science. It would become the most studied 5 seconds in history. This thought experiment reveals how fundamental gravity truly is. We rarely notice it because it never turns off. It shapes galaxies, guides planets, anchors oceans, and defines the direction of our every step. If gravity disappeared for just 5 seconds, the result would be global chaos, environmental upheaval, and widespread destruction. Yet it also reminds us of the delicate balance that allows life to exist. Gravity is not just a force, it is the quiet architect of reality itself.